Hello chess friends and welcome to Azadov's chess channel and welcome to the TCEC Season 20 Premier Division. So far we have seen, I think, really incredible games. Stockfish NNUE is still in the lead of the Premier Division and Stockfish has a comfortable 1-point lead in front of Lila C0. Still I think we'll see again the same finals like we used to see, Stockfish NNUE versus Lila C0. Still in my opinion, Stockfish NNUE slightly better than Lila C0. Stockfish plays again this brutal attacks, and today I decided to show you another great attack play by Stockfish NNUE against another top engine, Scorpio. This game I think has really this beautiful elements that we love to see: decoy, deflection, pawn breakthrough motifs, really this brutal attacks that basically only Stockfish and NNUE can perform. Lila C0 is near to that level, but still I think these games by Stockfish and NNUE are more beautiful, are more also instructive to us to see. So let's check out now the game. As usual in these top engine games we have this Mortal Kombat sound round 1 and fight. So e4 here played by Stockfish and NNUE. We have g6 by Scorpio, d4. It's the best way, I think, to occupy the center when your opponent allows it, when your opponent hasn't played some pawn moves which are controlling the center, like d4, d5, e5. So you should always grab the center. We have bishop to g7 and now knight to c3. Here at d6, the modern defense setup with some e5 ideas or c5 ideas. That's the main goal of blacks. Black will try to break the position around the square d4. So these are the main setups of the modern defense in the game. Now f4, which is sort of an Austrian attack setup. You can see many times this move f3 by white. Then white is trying bishop to e3, queen to d2, trying this queen and bishop battery on h6, trading off the bishops on h6, and then to deliver maybe checkmate threats here on the h file, combined with the queen and rook battery on the h file. So it's the common idea, but this move f4 is, I think, even more aggressive here by white. Of course, when you also push some pawns, you also leave some spaces. What we can notice now, a weakness in this pawn structure is many times, I think, the pawn on e4, so that's why black will try to build this attack around the square e4. In the game a6, also normal move in the modern defense. In the modern defense, we're trying to get b5 pawn breakthroughs, then attack the knight, and then also attack the e4 square, because the knight is, of course, the key protector of this very important pawn. So here, knight to f3, normal development, b5, bishop to d3. Stockfish and NNUE supports further the e4. We have bishop to b7. That's what I meant. The threat would have been, if you don't play something like bishop to d3, then b4 would be a serious threat. Then if the knight moves, we could take out the pawn. Also, knight to f6 ideas could happen here from black's perspective in order to continue the attack against the e4. So queen to e2. We have knight to d7, which is also a normal move of the modern defense. We're trying c5 or e5 motifs. We want to break the position. We want to break the pawn chain that white has built here in the center. e5 by Stockfish and NNUE anyway, because we have gained some space, and I think this e5 move takes control of this very important f6 square, and the knight would love, of course, to develop on a natural square, which would be the f6 square, but so far it's not possible. After the move e5, we have the move e6, which blocks the further progress of white, because if you, let's see, if you play c5, then it's really dangerous. It's really a bad position already for black, because we could push the pawn on e6, and after f6, e6, knight to g5, you can even take, but here that's the threat, knight to e6 with the fork on the queen and the bishop, and the bishop, when we take out the bishop, it comes also with the check. Here black is already lost. So that's why you see, you have to be careful here from black's perspective. e6 is the threat, so that's why you have to occupy that square for yourself. e6, we have bishop to e3, still Stockfish and NNUE continues the normal development, and we have now knight to h6. This is also normal idea. What black wants to do is to create a blockade. What I mean about the blockade, we want to play something like knight to f5 and maybe h5, then the knight on f5 couldn't be kicked away with the g4 move, so we want to keep the position on the king side compact. Then white cannot easily attack this position, and then black will try the c5 pawn breakthrough, also with c4 ideas, then b4 ideas, really getting an attack against these two minor pieces of white, which are of course on natural squares. But when black is attacking the queen side, then basically he's doing his attack against this minor pieces of white. So they are of course good, but they are also a little bit exposed. They can be really an object of black's attack. So Queenside castling, played by Stockfish and NNUE. If you try b4 here, still I think we can play knight to a4, or knight to b1 is even more accurate. Then we could break further here the advanced pawn on b4 with the move a3, and maybe get our knight to an a3, then knight to c4 and similar stuff. So this attack after move b4 would be a little bit splashed, I think, for black. Black needs the support. Black needs many more pieces in order to attack the queenside somehow. I think still that c5 is the main goal, to break the position here on the queenside, then maybe get 2 pawns connected like c5, b5, and then to march with them on. So here, if you try here in the game, Scorpio played castling. If you try knight to f5 immediately, the problem is now after the move bishop to f2, and if you try now this blockade idea immediately, it's not so good, because we can play bishop to f5 immediately. After the move g takes f5, we would then have a very nice attack here, bishop to h4. The problem is now bishop to f3 doesn't work, queen to f3, and you see the queen is endangered. You cannot take the queen because you lose the rook on a8. So here I think black could have some troubles on dark squares, so that's why this knight to f5 idea, which would be basically the main defensive setup for black, doesn't work immediately. You have to prepare this move further. So that's why here castling, played by Scorpio, we have h4, threatening now really this move h5, because in my opinion white is always slightly faster here when it comes to this opposite side attack game. You should always notice we have this opposite side attack game in which white has castle on the queen side, black has castle on the king side. So who is faster on that side where we are attacking will probably win the game. And it seems to me always that white is slightly faster. As I said, white can make progress immediately with move h5. What we want to do is again maybe build a queen and rook battery and threaten here some checkmates on the h file. So in the game, knight to f5 finally. Attacking the knight, we have bishop to f2, because if you try g4, well, then I think black can take queen to e3 and maybe hang on to this position, because now the bishop on g7 is a good defensive piece in front of the king, and you cannot trade off more the bishops like we are trying basically to do. We would love to play bishop to h6 and then trade off the bishops and then move the queen to the h file and then deliver checkmate. So that's why it's not possible now. If you lose this bishop immediately, you could have some trouble. So that's why bishop to f2 here, played by Stockfish and NNUE, and we have now this idea h5. So rook from h to g1, we are threatening now the g4 pawn breakthrough. We are threatening now to split open the position in front of the king. So that's why Scorpio plays the move knight to h6, preventing this idea, and now knight to h2, again with the same idea to play simply g4. c5, here Scorpio finally counterattacks on the queen side. You see there is really this tension also, so that's why I think it's very important now to undermine the pressure with d takes c5. If you play here d takes c5, I think there is maybe also a very nice tactical shot. Knight to b5, a takes b5, bishop to b5 could be very dangerous here for black. Also then followed with bishop to c5, also maybe building up further the battery on the d file. So you see you have to be careful. After move d takes c5, here Scorpio takes towards the center. What Scorpio is trying to do now is to get rid of this, at least the centralized pawns. The centralized pawns are, you see the move, the pawn on e5 is of course an attacker on the king side. So that's why Scorpio tries to undermine the pressure with the move d takes e5, and now Stockfish and NNUE goes g4. Anyway, it's time now really to attack. We don't have to, we should never really lose time when we are attacking our opponent's side. It's not about pawns anymore. As I said, who is faster on the attack will probably win the game. So after move g4, knight to g4, knight takes, and now the queen comes very active into the game. We're threatening now also the move h5. If you take, then also to deliver checkmate on the g file. So queen to c7, attacking the pawn on c5. We have queen to h3, knight to f6, and now comes f takes e5. We have queen to e5, and now rook to d1, rook to e1, and now queen to c7. If you try queen to f4 to create a check to stay active with your queen. Then you get bishop to e3, and if you try maybe to simplify the position, which would be a good choice, I think, for black. If black manages now to trade off the queens, then black is perfectly fine. Black has defended this position, but still there is this move rook to g3, and we can kick away the queen. The queen can maybe come to h5, but now rook from e to g1, and we're threatening now further rook to g5, followed probably with some h5 motifs, probably just even sacrifice maybe rook for the knight, just in order to split the pawn structure in front of the king. Really look at this direction of the attack, look at this bishops, how they're aiming. The rook battery here would be very dangerous. Even the knight can be in some occasions probably included in the game. Maybe knight to e2, knight to f4 is also a possibility, then push the pawn on h5 further. So really great position here for white. So queen to c7, here instead of this queen to f4 idea played by Scorpio, we have a3, preventing some b4 motifs, preventing some b4 attacks against the knight. We have knight to h5 played by Scorpio, preventing now further progress with the move h5, king to b1, and now rook to b8. The idea is clear. We want to first get the bishop somewhere here, maybe to c6 or a8, and then push the pawn further on b4 and open the b file, which could be also dangerous here for white. So you see Scorpio plays also a nice counterattack. There are the threats around the square c3, but also around the square b2. Here the knight is temporarily at least blocking out the further progress with the move h5. So Stockfish has to be active here and played now bishop to e3. We have a bishop to a8. Here you could also try bishop to c6 in order to maybe try to make further progress here with the move b4. As I said, it's not a problem, I think, but still I think we can play simply on our idea. Even rook to g5 could be a possibility. Then maybe even to sacrifice the rook for the knight could be also a very nice idea. So in the game bishop to a8, we have rook from e to f1, we have queen to e7. Again, if you try this idea bishop to c6, we can simply play bishop to c1. That's a very nice defensive move. The bishop stays on this very long diagonal, is attacking still the king side, but also is protecting our weakness. It's the move, it's the weak square b2. And even if you try to make progress here with b4, still a takes b4, rook to b4, but now you get a nice tactic, I think, bishop to g6. And I think this tactic is something that black should always take care of, because if you take here f takes g6, queen to e6 could happen, and you see you're simply lost. We will take also this pawn, then afterwards the knight is endangered. Still we have, I think, a great activity here. So that's why queen to e7. You see Scorpio has to stay and protect this this pawn structure here, because the threat is really dangerous here. This move bishop to g6. In the game rook to g4, Stockfish and NNUE is doubling up the rooks on the g file. We have rook to d1, threatening now the discovered attack with some bishop to g6 ideas, then discovered attack on the queen, of course. That's why queen to e8. Scorpio is desperate here to defend really this g6, f7 and the e6 pawn chain that black has built here. Scorpio has to defend this position, and now comes this battery rook to g1. Even immediately, I think a bishop to g6 idea could work. Really dangerous position here for black. So we have a5 with ideas to finally get this b4 move, because you see, not that this rook is only attacking the g file, it's also controlling the very important fourth rank. So that's why black has to lose another tempo. That's the most important thing to realize here, because in this opposite side attack games, it's all about tempi, and you have to lose another tempo, which gives now Stockfish and NNUE a comfortable game with the move bishop to f4. We're deflecting basically the last defender, the last good defender, I think, of blacks. It was the knight on h5. Now when the knight is not there anymore, we can push the pawn to h5 and split the pawn structure, as I said, in front of the king. So after the move rook to f5, we have f5. We have finally this move h5, b4, a takes b4, a takes b4, but now bishop to b5. Very dangerous, because we're threatening now to deflect the queen somewhere here, and we can now take out this pawn and threatening checkmate here on h7. So rook to b5. Here Stockfish NNUE doesn't even take the rook, plays first h takes g6, h takes g6 with preparations to play the move queen to h7 and deliver checkmate. So that's why you have to create some breathing spaces for the king. And now knight to b5 deflects the queen a little bit from the queen side, and now rook to h4. There are even now some threats to play something like rook to h7 followed with rook takes g7 and then queen to h7 would be also very dangerous, or maybe even rook to h8 immediately followed with queen to h7, and then we can take out the bishop. So this is very, very dangerous. So that's why here Scorpio has to defend the 7th rank, very important move. But now rook to d4, this other rook comes very active into the game. We're threatening also the move rook to d8. So rook to queen to c8, we have rook to d6, and now b3, which is again an idea to get the b file somehow open, but it's a little bit too late. We have queen to b3, bishop to d5, here queen to b6, staying very actively into the game. We're threatening also this idea rook to d8, rook to f8, a must move. But now c6, we have now great pass pawn here, bishop to e5, queen to a7, threatening now the checkmate on h7. You can play maybe queen to b8, but now it's game over here. It was checkmate by Stockfish and NNUE. Will give that a fatality sound. So great attack again by Stockfish and NNUE. Really brutal attack. You see how Stockfish plays this pawn breakthroughs, getting rid of the key defender. Somehow this knight on h5 was a good defensive piece. Getting first staying with the dark square bishop on the board, then afterwards giving up the dark square bishop. But for the initiative, you see how Stockfish plays this attack. I think really beautiful game, and I think it was very instructive for those who have troubles maybe to play against the modern defense. I myself had really troubles to find a good system against the modern defense, because many times I've seen now, at least in this FIDE international master level, they're playing this modern defense very often because they get this idea to get c5. But I think Stockfish played here an instructive game, and I think you can use one of these elements in order to maybe beat finally the modern defense. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you want to see more brutal attacks like this, check out my commented chess games play by computer series. And if you want to see humans battling in their best chess games, check out my best chess games of all time series. Here's also the link. And if you like this content, you can also subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.